The day I finally stopped protecting my family was the day my older brother, Ethan, stood in front of a room full of relatives and called me a thief. We were celebrating my parents' 40th wedding anniversary. More than 30 people filled the restaurant. Glasses clinked together, people laughed, old family stories bounced around the room. Then Ethan tapped a spoon against his wine glass. The room slowly became quiet. He stood up, adjusted his expensive suit, looked directly at me, and smiled. But it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile people wear when they've already decided to bury someone. Before we cut the cake, he said, "I think everyone should know something." My stomach tightened. He looked right at me. Liam has been secretly stealing from Mom and Dad's retirement money to support his own failed life. Silence. Complete silence. You could practically hear people stop breathing. I looked at my mother immediately. I expected shock. I expected anger. I expected her to stand up and say, "What are you talking about?" Instead, she looked down at her lap. She couldn't even look at me. Then my father spoke. His voice was cold, flat, almost emotionless. "Liam, give your brother the keys to the family business account, apologize to everyone here, and leave." My chest felt empty. Then he looked me directly in the eyes. "You are no longer part of this family." Nobody moved. Nobody defended me. 30 faces stared at me like I was garbage. I slowly stood up. I placed my napkin on the table. Not because I was calm, because I honestly couldn't feel anything. I walked outside into the pouring rain. No jacket, no umbrella, nothing. I reached my car and sat behind the steering wheel. I gripped it so tightly my knuckles turned white. For several minutes, I just stared through the rain-covered windshield. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was numb. My father's words kept replaying in my head. "You're no longer part of this family." I tried starting the car 3 times before realizing my hand was shaking too badly. Outside, rain hit the windows while 30 years of loyalty collapsed in complete silence. Then slowly, the shock disappeared, and something else took its place. Clarity. They wanted me gone? Fine. But they had absolutely no idea that removing me from their lives was the same as pulling the pin on their own grenade. To understand what happened, you need to understand Ethan. Ethan had always been the golden child. Everything about him was perfect. Perfect grades, perfect smile, perfect son. When he got accepted into a prestigious business school, my parents celebrated like he had won the lottery. Nobody knew I was working 14-hour shifts at a logistics company to help pay for it. I never told anyone, because family was family. After graduation, Ethan took over my father's construction supply warehouse. He drove a brand new BMW, wore expensive suits, talked endlessly about expanding the family legacy. People at church loved him, but I knew something nobody else did. Ethan had a gambling problem, a bad one. 3 years earlier, he showed up at my apartment around midnight. I opened the door and barely recognized him. He was crying, shaking, terrified. He had taken out a huge business loan using my parents' house as collateral, and he was drowning. If the bank found out, Mom and Dad would lose everything. I love my parents, so I did what I thought a son was supposed to do. I signed onto a restructured loan. I sacrificed my savings, my credit, my future. Every month, $3,500 disappeared from my account. For 3 years, I lived in a tiny apartment, ate cheap canned soup, stopped buying things for myself. Meanwhile, Ethan lived like a king. And every family dinner, he laughed. "Liam, man, you seriously need ambition." Then Mom would smile. Not everyone can think big like Ethan. I stayed quiet, because years earlier my grandfather told me, a real man protects his family's shelter, even if he has to stand in the rain. I believed him. I thought I was protecting people. I didn't realize I was becoming their sacrifice. 2 weeks before the anniversary dinner, I got a notification from my bank. My credit score had dropped dramatically. My heart started pounding. I immediately called Clara, my bank manager. "Liam," she said carefully, "did you authorize a new credit line under your name?" I froze. "No." Silence. Then she said, "I'll send the documents." A minute later, I opened the PDF. There was my name, my information, my signature, or at least something pretending to be my signature. The slant looked slightly wrong. Then I looked at the witness section, and my chest tightened. I stared for nearly a minute. Then I looked again. And again. I wanted my eyes to prove me wrong. I wanted it to be anybody else's handwriting. Anybody. But it wasn't. It was my mother's. The woman who used to hold my hand while crossing streets had signed papers helping my brother bury me. She knew. She knew everything. I had planned on confronting them quietly after the anniversary. But Ethan knew time was running out. So he attacked first. He destroyed my reputation before I could expose him. Sitting inside my car that night, I opened my laptop. I opened my banking apps. Then I started clicking. Recurring payment. Cancel. Business loan support. Cancel. Parents' insurance payments. Cancel. Phone bills. Cancel. Netflix account. Cancel. Everything. Then I emailed every document to a fraud attorney. My message was short. They crossed the line. Full legal action. For days later, my phone exploded. Mom called 14 times. Dad called 8. Ethan sent 22 messages. I ignored everyone. For the first time in years, I sat on my balcony drinking coffee and realized something. My money belonged to me again. At 2 p.m., my father knocked on my apartment door. When I opened it, he looked 10 years older. His shoulders had collapsed. His eyes looked empty. His hands trembled. "Liam," he whispered. The bank froze everything. He looked terrified. "Your mother's insurance got canceled. Lawyers contacted us." "What did you do?" I looked at him calmly. "I didn't do anything." "What?" "I just stopped paying for people who threw me away." Ethan said it was a misunderstanding. I looked directly at him. Ethan forged my signature. Then I paused, and Mom helped him. His face completely changed. "That's fraud, Dad." Then I quietly said, "You stood there and watched me walk into the rain for a lie." I closed the door. Justice didn't happen overnight. Real life doesn't work like movies. Months passed. Meetings, lawyers, paperwork, sleepless nights. Sometimes I sat staring at my ceiling wondering if I had done the right thing. Then I remembered that restaurant, those faces, that silence. And I kept going. Eventually, Ethan accepted a plea deal. He sold his BMW, liquidated his business, lost nearly everything. My parents sold their home and moved somewhere smaller. Family members eventually learned the truth. The same people who judged me suddenly became quiet. Very quiet. Last week I received a small package. No return address. But I recognized my father's handwriting. Inside was my grandfather's old silver watch, along with a note. "You protected us for years, and we repaid you with a stone. I am sorry, Berdi. You were the strong one." I stared at the watch for a long time. Then I put it away. I forgave him. But forgiveness doesn't mean reopening the same door that someone once slammed in your face. Today my apartment is quiet. Sometimes I sit beside my window with a cup of coffee and listen to absolutely nothing. Funny enough, silence used to feel lonely. Now it feels like peace. I spent years carrying people who would have watched me drown if it meant saving themselves. Putting down that weight didn't make me weak. It finally let me breathe. Have you ever been blamed for something you didn't do? Tell me in the comments below. And if you enjoy stories about betrayal, strength, and justice, subscribe for more.